Did I catch my maid of honor in bed with my fiancé while carrying his child, 6 days before our wedding? The rain hammered against the penthouse windows the night everything ended. Sutton Pierce stood in the master bedroom doorway, her silk robe loose, her hair wild, her lips swollen. She didn't flinch when she saw me. She didn't apologize. She just smiled, slow, poisonous, satisfied. Behind her, Orlando Caputo sat on the edge of the bed, his shirt half-buttoned, his jaw tight. His dark eyes met mine for one brutal second before he looked away. My hand instinctively went to my belly, where our daughter had been kicking all evening, as if she could sense the danger before I could. 6 months pregnant, 6 days from the wedding, and my maid of honor had just destroyed everything. "Surprise," Sutton whispered, her voice dripping with venom. "Did you really think he wanted you?" The air felt thin, like the room was collapsing inward. I'd known Sutton since college, trusted her with every secret, every fear, every dream. She'd held my hand through my mother's funeral. She'd helped me pick out my wedding dress. She'd thrown me a baby shower 3 weeks ago and cried when she toasted to my happiness. And now she stood here, wearing his scent like perfume. "Get out," Orlando said, his voice low and lethal. He wasn't talking to me. Sutton turned to him, eyebrows raised. "Really? After everything you said to me an hour ago? Get out." She laughed, a sharp, cruel sound, and grabbed her coat from the chair. As she passed me in the doorway, she leaned close, her breath hot against my ear. "He never loved you. He only married you because of what your father left behind. But I bet you already knew that, didn't you?" Then she was gone, her heels clicking down the hallway like gunshots. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process the weight of what I'd just seen. The baby kicked again, harder this time, and the pain snapped me back into my body. Orlando stood slowly, buttoning his shirt with steady hands. His face was unreadable, cold, controlled. The same mask he wore during business meetings with men who'd kill for less than a bad handshake. He was a Caputo, one of the most feared names in the city, and I'd been foolish enough to believe he'd chosen me because he loved me. "It's not what you think," he said quietly. "Don't," my voice cracked. "Don't insult me. Listen to me. I saw you." Tears blurred my vision, but I refused to let them fall. Not in front of him. Not after this. "I saw her, in our bed, wearing your—" She set this up. "Liar," his jaw clenched. And for a moment, I saw something flicker behind his eyes. Something raw and desperate. But it vanished as quickly as it came. He stepped toward me and I stepped back, my spine hitting the doorframe. "Don't touch me," I whispered. "Don't ever touch me again." The baby kicked once more, and I felt the betrayal settle deep into my bones, cold and permanent. I'd given him everything, my trust, my body, my future, and he'd thrown it all away for the woman I'd called my best friend. Orlando's phone buzzed on the nightstand. He glanced at it, then back at me, conflict warring across his face. "I have to make a call, but we're not done talking." "Yes," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "We are." I turned and walked out, my hand pressed protectively over my belly, my heart splintering with every step. Behind me, I heard him curse under his breath and slam something hard against the wall. By the time I reached the elevator, my phone was ringing. Sutton's name flashed across the screen. I answered, my finger hovering over the speaker button. "Enjoy the show?" she purred. "Because there's so much more you don't know. About him, about your father, about why he really put a ring on your finger." She paused, letting the silence stretch. "Sweet dreams, sweetheart. You're going to need them." The line went dead, and as the elevator doors closed, I realized the nightmare had only just begun. Hey, beautiful souls. Welcome back. I hope you're doing amazing today. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button because this story, you won't believe where it goes. I drove through the rain-soaked streets with no destination in mind, just away from him, away from that penthouse, away from the life I thought I'd built. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles ached. The baby, our baby, kept moving inside me, restless and aware. My name is Aria Brennan. Or at least that's who I used to be before Orlando Caputo walked into my father's funeral 8 months ago and changed everything. My father, Vincent Brennan, had been a federal prosecutor, decorated, feared, untouchable. He'd spent 30 years putting away the worst criminals in the city, including half of Orlando's family. When he died in a car accident last spring, the entire legal community mourned. But Orlando showed up at the funeral in a black suit and cold eyes, watching me from the back row like he was studying evidence. 3 days later, he appeared at my door with flowers and an offer I should have refused. "Your father had something that belongs to my family," he'd said, his voice smooth as smoke. "Files, documents, insurance he kept in case we ever came for him. I want them back." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." He'd stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "And I'm willing to negotiate." That negotiation turned into dinners. Dinners turned into late-night conversations where he told me things no Caputo should ever tell an outsider. He talked about his mother, who died when he was 12, about his younger sister Gianna, who he'd raised himself after their father went to prison, about the weight of a name that made people cross the street when they saw him coming. And somewhere between the truth and the lies, I fell for him. By the time I realized I was pregnant, I'd already handed over my father's files. By the time he proposed, I'd already convinced myself he loved me. I was so stupid. My phone rang again. Not Sutton this time. Orlando. I let it go to voicemail. Then another call. Another. On the 5th try, I answered. "What? Where are you?" His voice was tight, controlled, dangerous. "Why do you care?" "Because you're carrying my child and driving in a storm at midnight." "Pull over, now." "Go to hell." "Area." I hung up and turned off my phone. The rain was coming down harder now, the windshield wipers struggling to keep up. I should have pulled over, should have found a hotel. But all I could see was Sutton's smile and Orlando's empty eyes. I ended up at my childhood home in Queens, a small 2-story house my father had refused to sell even after he could afford better. I hadn't been back since the funeral. The key was still hidden under the 3rd brick on the front porch, just like always. Inside, everything was exactly as he'd left it. His reading glasses on the coffee table, his jacket on the coat rack, the faint smell of his cologne still lingering in the air. I sank onto the couch and finally let myself cry, great heaving sobs that shook my whole body. The baby kicked, and I pressed my hand to my belly. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I'm so sorry I brought you into this mess." That's when I heard the front door open. I froze. Footsteps in the hallway, slow, deliberate, confident. My heart slammed against my ribs as a figure appeared in the doorway. Orlando. He looked like he'd walked through hell to find me. His hair was soaked, his shirt clinging to his chest, his eyes wild with something I couldn't name. He stared at me for a long moment, breathing hard. "How did you—" "I know everything about you," he said quietly. "Every place you've ever felt safe, every place you'd run." He stepped into the room. "Did you really think I'd let you disappear? I'm not yours to find." "Yes," he said, his voice dropping to something almost broken. "You are." And for the first time since I'd walked in on him with Sutton, I saw the mask crack. But I didn't know if what lay underneath was love or something far more dangerous. If you're hooked, drop a comment and tell me what you think Orlando's hiding. And don't forget to subscribe. You'll want to see what happens next. "Get out," I said, my voice shaking. "You don't get to follow me here. You don't get to stand in my father's house after what you did." Orlando didn't move. Water dripped from his hair onto the hardwood floor, pooling at his feet. His eyes never left mine. I didn't touch her. You saw what she wanted you to see." He took a step forward, and I stood, putting the couch between us. Sutton drugged me, Rohypnol in my whiskey. I woke up with her in my bed, and no memory of how she got there. "That's convenient." "It's the truth." His jaw tightened. "She's been working with the Volkov family for 3 months. They want your father's files, the real ones, the ones you didn't give me, the ones Vincent hid before he died." My blood went cold. "The Volkovs? They're Russian mob. They've been trying to move into our territory for years. And those files contain evidence that could destroy both our families." He moved around the couch, closing the distance between us. "Sutton was sent to get close to you, to find out where Vincent hid his insurance policy." "You're lying. Sutton's been my friend since 3 months after your father died. Think about it, Arya. She appeared right when you needed someone most. Right when you were vulnerable and alone. His voice softened. She played you, and she played me. I wanted to call him a liar, wanted to scream that he was manipulating me again. But pieces were clicking into place. Sutton's sudden interest in my father's cases, her questions about his home office, the way she'd encouraged me to trust Orlando in the first place. Even if that's true, I whispered, it doesn't explain why you're really with me. She said you only wanted me because of what my father left behind. Orlando stared at me for a long moment, something raw and vulnerable crossing his face. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a photograph. Old, creased, faded. He handed it to me. It was my mother. Young, maybe 20, standing outside a restaurant I didn't recognize. And next to her, his arm around her shoulders, was a man I'd never seen before. Tall, dark-haired, with eyes exactly like Orlando's. That's my father, Orlando said quietly, and your mother, before either of us was born. The photograph slipped from my fingers. What? They were in love! But Vincent found out, and he threatened to destroy my father's entire organization if my mother didn't disappear. So she did. She married my father, had me, and spent the rest of her short life looking over her shoulder. His voice turned cold, bitter. Your father took her from mine, and my father never forgave him. So this was revenge. The words tasted like ash. You got close to me, got me pregnant, made me fall in love with you, all to settle some ancient grudge. It started that way. He stepped closer, his hand reaching for my face, but I jerked back. My father ordered me to seduce you, get the files, and destroy Vincent's legacy. But then I met you, and everything changed. The front window exploded inward. Glass sprayed across the room as gunfire erupted from the street. Orlando threw himself at me, taking us both to the ground, his body covering mine and the baby. Bullets punched through the walls, splintering wood and sending furniture flying. Stay down, he shouted, pulling a gun from his waistband. Through the broken window, I saw 3 black SUVs idling at the curb. Men in tactical gear were advancing toward the house, weapons raised, and standing. Behind them, illuminated by a streetlight, was Sutton. She waved, then blew me a kiss. Orlando fired twice through the window, dropping the nearest attacker. We need to move. Now. He hauled me to my feet and pulled me toward the back of the house as more gunfire tore through the living room. My ears were ringing, my heart pounding, my hands instinctively protecting my belly. Why are they shooting at us? I screamed. Because Sutton told them you know where the files are. He kicked open the back door and dragged me into the rain. And the Volkovs don't take prisoners. We ran into the night, bullets chasing us into the darkness, and I realized the wedding was the least of my problems. Staying alive was all that mattered now. Orlando's car was parked 2 blocks away, hidden in an alley behind a shuttered bodega. He shoved me into the passenger seat and peeled out before I even had my seatbelt on. Behind us, the SUVs gave chase, their headlights cutting through the rain like searchlights. Put your head down, he ordered, taking a corner so fast the tires screamed. I ducked as bullets pinged off the rear bumper. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold onto the door handle. The baby was kicking frantically, responding to my terror, and I tried to calm my breathing for her sake. Where are we going? Somewhere they can't follow. He swerved into oncoming traffic, forcing a taxi to slam on its brakes. My sister's place. Gianna will keep you safe while I handle this. Your sister knows about me. His jaw tightened. She knows everything. 20 minutes later, we pulled up to a brownstone in Brooklyn. Orlando was out of the car before the engine died, scanning the street with his gun still drawn. When he was satisfied we hadn't been followed, he helped me out and rushed me up the steps. The door opened before he could knock. The woman standing there was stunning, tall and lean with Orlando's dark eyes and sharp cheekbones. She wore all black and had a gun holstered at her hip. Her gaze swept over me, taking in my pregnant belly and tear-stained face before landing on her brother. You brought the Volkovs to Queens? Gianna Caputo's voice was ice. They were already there. Sutton set us up. Of course she did. Gianna stepped aside to let us in. I told you that girl was poisoned 3 months ago, but you didn't listen. Inside, the brownstone was clean and minimalist, all exposed brick and hardwood floors. Gianna locked 3 separate deadbolts behind us and activated a security panel by the door. "Sit," she told me, pointing to the couch. "You look like you're about to pass out." I sank onto the cushions, my legs finally giving out. Orlando disappeared into another room, already on his phone, his voice low and urgent. Gianna poured me a glass of water and sat across from me, studying me with unsettling intensity. "So you're the prosecutor's daughter," she said finally. "The one who made my brother go soft." "I didn't make him do anything, no?" A thin smile. "He was supposed to get the files and walk away. Instead, he fell in love with you, got you pregnant, and now we have a war on our hands." She leaned forward. "Tell me something, Arya. Did you know what your father really was?" "He was a prosecutor. He put criminals away." "He was a blackmailer." Gianna's voice was flat, matter of fact. "He collected dirt on every family in this city, not to prosecute us, but to control us. My father paid Vincent Brennan $50,000 a month for 20 years, just to keep our business out of court. And we weren't the only ones." The room tilted. "You're lying." "I wish I was. Your father was the biggest criminal in New York, and he hid behind a badge while he did it." She stood and walked to the window, peering through the blinds. "Those files Orlando wanted. They contained 30 years of evidence that could bring down every major operation in the city. The Volkovs want them. The Italians want them. Even the feds would kill for them. I don't have them. I gave Orlando everything I found." "No." Orlando's voice came from the doorway. He looked exhausted, his shirt still damp, his eyes hollow. "You gave me the decoys. Your father was too smart to keep the real files where anyone could find them." He crossed the room and knelt in front of me, his hands resting gently on my knees. Up close, I could see the fear behind his eyes. Not for himself, but for me, for us. "I need you to think, Arya. Where would Vincent hide something he never wanted found? Somewhere only you would know. Somewhere that meant something to both of you." I wanted to help him, wanted to give him the answer that would make this nightmare end. But my mind was blank, overwhelmed by betrayal and gunfire and revelations I couldn't process. "I don't know," I whispered. "I swear, I don't know." Orlando's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his entire body went rigid. He stood slowly, his hand moving to his gun. "What?" Gianna asked, her own weapon already drawn. "Sutton just sent me a video." His voice was dead, emotionless. He turned the phone toward me. On the screen, Sutton stood in what looked like a warehouse. She wasn't alone. Tied to a chair behind her, bloodied and barely conscious, was someone I recognized. My father's former law partner, Richard Castellano. Sutton smiled at the camera. "Hi, lover. Miss me already?" She walked behind Richard and pressed a gun to his head. "Your girlfriend's father had 3 partners. Richard here is number 2. He knows where the files are, but he's being stubborn." She cocked the gun. "You have 2 hours to bring me Arya, or I start sending him back to you in pieces. And don't bother calling the cops. Half of them are on our payroll anyway." The video ended. Orlando looked at me, and I saw the decision forming behind his eyes. He was going to trade me, going to hand me over to save a man I barely knew. "No," Gianna said sharply, reading her brother's face. "You are not doing this." "I don't have a choice." "There's always a choice." She moved between us, her jaw set. "We have 2 hours. That's enough time to find another way." "What other way?" Orlando's voice rose. "They have a hostage. They have weapons. They have Sutton, who knows every move we're going to make because she's been inside our operation for months. Then we give them what they want." Gianna turned to me. "Not you. The files. We find them first, and we use them as leverage." "I told you I don't know where they are." My voice broke, and the baby kicked hard, as if protesting the chaos around her. "Then we make them think you do." Gianna's smile was sharp and cold. "We set our own trap, and we end this tonight." Orlando stared at his sister for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. And I realized I wasn't just caught between 2 families anymore. I was about to become the bait that would start a war. Let me know in the comments what you think Arya should do. And hit subscribe because part 5 is going to blow your mind. The plan was insane. Gianna spread a map of the city across her dining table, marking locations with red pen while Orlando made calls to people with names I didn't want to know. I sat on the couch, my hands pressed to my belly, trying to keep my panic from drowning me. "We tell Sutton you remembered where the files are," Gianna explained, circling an industrial area near the docks. "We agree to the exchange, you for Richard, but we move it to our territory, somewhere we control." "And then what?" I asked. "She's not stupid. She'll know it's a trap." "Of course she will. That's why you're going to sell it." Gianna's eyes were hard. "You call her. You sound desperate, scared, willing to sacrifice yourself to save an innocent man. You give her just enough detail about the files to make her believe you actually know where they are." "But I don't. Doesn't matter. By the time she figures that out, we'll have her surrounded." Orlando appeared beside me, his hand resting on my shoulder. "My men will be positioned at every exit. The moment she shows herself, we take her. And if something goes wrong," my voice was barely a whisper, "if they start shooting again?" Orlando knelt in front of me, his hands cupping my face. This close, I could see the exhaustion carved into his features, the weight of decisions that had brought us here. "I won't let anything happen to you," he said quietly. "Or our daughter, I swear on my life." "Your life isn't worth much if you've been lying to me this entire time." The words came out harsher than I intended, but I couldn't take them back. He flinched like I'd slapped him. "I know you don't trust me. I know I don't deserve it. But everything I've done, every choice, every lie, it was to protect you. By using me for revenge?" "It wasn't revenge," his voice broke. "Not after the first night. Not after I saw who you really were, strong and kind and nothing like your father. You made me want to be better than the name I was born into." He pressed his forehead against mine. "I love you, Arya. That's the only truth that matters." I wanted to believe him, wanted to fall into his arms and pretend the last 6 hours hadn't happened. But Sutton's words kept echoing in my head. He never loved you, and I didn't know what was real anymore. Gianna cleared her throat. "We need to move. Sutton's not going to wait forever." Orlando handed me his phone. Sutton's number was already pulled up. My finger hovered over the call button, my heart hammering against my ribs. "What do I say?" "The truth," Gianna said. "Or close enough." I pressed call. Sutton answered on the second ring. Well, I was starting to think you'd let poor Richard die." Her voice was bright, cheerful, like we were catching up over coffee. "Let him go," I said, forcing my voice to shake. It wasn't hard. "I'll tell you where the files are. I'll give you everything. Just don't hurt him." "Oh, sweetheart, you're not in a position to negotiate." I heard movement in the background, then Richard's muffled scream. "But I'm feeling generous. Where are they?" "My father's lake house, upstate. There's a safe hidden in the basement behind a false wall." The lie came easier than I expected. "The combination is my mother's birthday." Silence. Then, "How do I know you're not lying?" "Because I'm 6 months pregnant, and I just watched you try to kill me in my childhood home." My voice cracked. "I don't care about the files. I don't care about any of this. I just want my baby to be safe." More silence. I could hear Sutton thinking, weighing my words, searching for the trap. "Fine," she said finally, "but you're coming with us to open the safe. Just you. No Orlando, no backup, no weapons. If I see anyone following you, Richard dies. Then I come for that baby you're so worried about." My blood turned to ice. That wasn't the deal. The deal just changed. "Meet me at Pier 47 in 90 minutes. Come alone or everyone you love dies screaming." The line went dead. Orlando was already shaking his head before I could speak. "Absolutely not. We'll find another way." "There is no other way." I stood, my legs steadier than they'd been all night. "She wants me. Fine. Let's give her what she wants." "Arya, your men will be there, right? Watching, waiting for the right moment." I turned to Gianna. "That's still the plan?" She nodded slowly, respect flickering in her eyes. "Then we do this." I looked at Orlando, and for the first time, I saw real fear in his face. Not for himself. For me. "You said you'd protect us. So protect us." He stared at me for a long moment, his jaw working. Then he pulled me into his arms, holding me so tightly I could barely breathe. "If anything happens to you," his voice was raw, broken. "It won't." I pulled back and met his eyes. "Because you're going to make sure of it." 70 minutes later, I stood on Pier 47. the wind whipping off the water, my coat pulled tight around my belly. The docks were deserted, just rusted shipping containers and the distant lights of the city. A black SUV pulled up. The door opened and Sutton stepped out, looking like she was headed to a cocktail party instead of a hostage exchange. Behind her, 2 men dragged Richard from the vehicle. He was barely conscious, his face a mess of bruises. "Right on time," Sutton said, her smile wide and poisonous. "I'm impressed. Most people would have run. Let him go. Show me the files first." "They're not here. They're at the lake house, like I said." Sutton's smile faltered. "Then why are you here?" "Because you told me to be." I took a step forward, my heart pounding. "And because I wanted to ask you something. Were we ever really friends? Or was it all a lie from the beginning?" Something flickered across her face, almost like regret. Then it was gone, replaced by cold amusement. "Does it matter?" She moved closer, her voice dropping. "Your father destroyed lives, Arya, my family included. He ruined my uncle, had him thrown in prison on false charges, and then blackmailed the rest of us into silence. So when the Volkovs offered me a chance at payback," she shrugged, "I took it. And you made it so easy, trusting, naive, desperate for someone to fill the hole your daddy left behind. So you never cared about me at all. I cared about winning." Sutton pulled a gun from her coat. "And now I have. Because here's the thing about that lake house, sweetheart. It doesn't exist. Your father never owned property upstate. Which means you just lied to me." The world slowed down. "Which means," Sutton continued, pressing the gun to my chest, "you don't actually know where the files are. You never did. And that makes you completely useless to me." She cocked the gun. And that's when Orlando stepped out from behind a shipping container, his weapon aimed at Sutton's head. "Drop it," he said, his voice lethal and calm. Sutton laughed. "You think I came here alone?" All around us, shadows moved. At least a dozen armed men emerged from the darkness, surrounding us, their weapons trained on Orlando. Gianna appeared from another direction, her own gun drawn, but she was outnumbered 5-1. "Looks like we're at a standoff," Sutton purred. "No," a new voice said from the darkness. "It really doesn't." A figure stepped into the light, and my entire world stopped. My father, Vincent Brennan, stood at the end of the pier, very much alive, a gun in his hand and murder in his eyes. "Hello, sweetheart," he said, looking directly at me. "We need to talk." The gun fell from Sutton's hand. Everyone froze, Orlando, Gianna, the armed men surrounding us, all staring at the ghost who'd just walked out of the darkness. My father looked older, thinner, his hair more gray than I remembered, but his eyes were the same, sharp, calculating, merciless. "You're dead," I whispered. "I buried you. I stood at your funeral and you buried an empty casket." Vincent walked closer, his movements careful, deliberate. "The car accident was staged. I needed to disappear before the people I'd spent 30 years controlling decided to eliminate me permanently." Orlando's gun shifted toward my father. "Stay back." "Or what, Caputo? You'll shoot the father of the woman carrying your child?" Vincent's smile was cold. "I don't think so. Despite everything, you actually love her. I can see it on your face. Your father would be ashamed. My father's rotting in a cell because of you. Your father's rotting in a cell because he was sloppy." Vincent stopped 10 feet away, his gun still lowered. "I simply provided the evidence that put him there, just like I've provided evidence on every family in this city for 3 decades. My legs felt weak. Why? Why would you fake your death and let me think you were gone? To protect you." His voice softened, just slightly. "The Volkovs were closing in. They'd figured out I had files that could destroy them, and they were going to use you to get to me. So I disappeared, left you the decoy files, and watched from a distance. You let me grieve you. You let me suffer. I kept you alive." His eyes hardened. "And then you got involved with him." He gestured at Orlando with disgust. "A Caputo. After everything I did to keep you away from that world, you fell right into it." Orlando took a step forward, placing himself between my father and me. "She didn't fall into anything. I pursued her because you taught me that Brennans take everything from Caputos. But she showed me there was another way to live." "How touching." Vincent's voice dripped with sarcasm. "Did she also show you that she's been lying to you for months?" That she knows exactly where the real files are, and she's been protecting me this entire time? Orlando's head turned slightly, his eyes finding mine. The betrayal in them cut deeper than any bullet could. Arya! His voice was barely audible. I didn't. My throat closed. I don't know what he's talking about. Don't lie to him now, Vincent said. It's beneath you. You figured it out 6 weeks ago when you were going through my old case notes. You found the safety deposit box key taped inside my law school yearbook, the one I showed you every year on your birthday and told you to keep safe. The memory slammed into me. The yearbook, the key. The way I dismissed it as nothing important because I'd been so focused on the pregnancy, the wedding, the life I was trying to build. You knew, Orlando said quietly, his voice hollow. All this time, you knew where they were. I didn't think it mattered, I whispered. I thought he was dead. You thought you could keep secrets from me. He stepped back, away from me, and the distance. Between us felt like a chasm. Just like everyone else in your family. Orlando, please, enough. Vincent raised his gun, pointing it at Sutton, who'd been watching the scene unfold with growing panic. You're working for Alexei Volkov. Where is he? Sutton's composure finally cracked. I don't know. He doesn't tell me everything. Wrong answer, Vincent fired. The bullet hit the concrete at Sutton's feet, sending up sparks. She screamed and stumbled backward. Next one goes in your knee, Vincent said calmly. Then your other knee, then we get creative. Where is Alexei? The warehouse, Sutton's voice broke. The old steel plant on Roosevelt Island. He's waiting there with 30 men for me to bring the files. Vincent nodded, satisfied. Then he turned his gun on Orlando. Dad, no! I threw myself forward, but Gianna grabbed me, holding me back. This is how it ends, Vincent said. I eliminate the last Caputo who could threaten us, take the files, and disappear again. You and the baby come with me. We start over somewhere safe. I won't go with you. I'll never. You don't have a choice, Arya. His finger moved to the trigger. I've already lost your mother. I'm not losing you too. Then you should have stayed dead. The words came out ice cold, final. Because the father I knew would never do this. He wouldn't fake his death, wouldn't manipulate his daughter, wouldn't murder someone in cold blood. Vincent's hand wavered. I did all of this for you. You did this for power, for control. Just like Orlando said, you're the biggest criminal in New York, and you've been hiding behind a badge while you destroyed people's lives. Tears streamed down my face, but my voice stayed steady. You made me hate the mafia, made me fear them, and then I fell in love with one of them and realized he's more honest than you've ever been. Arya, shoot him or don't. But you lost me the day you decided I was a pawn instead of your daughter. For a long moment, Vincent just stared at me. Then, slowly, he lowered his gun. You have no idea what you're choosing, he said quietly. That family will destroy you. Maybe. I moved to Orlando's side, taking his hand. He didn't pull away. But at least I'll get to choose my own destruction. Vincent's face hardened. Then you're on your own. All of you. When the Volkovs come, and they will, don't expect me to save you. He turned and walked back into the shadows, disappearing as suddenly as he'd appeared. His men followed, melting into the darkness like they'd never been there. Sutton was already running, sprinting toward her SUV. Gianna aimed, but Orlando caught her wrist. Let her go, he said tiredly. She's not the real threat. Then what is? Gianna demanded. Orlando looked at me, his eyes haunted. The fact that 30 armed Volkovs are waiting for files we don't have. And now they know we're coming. Richard groaned from where he lay on the ground. Orlando moved to help him up, avoiding my gaze. Orlando, please talk to me. Not now. His voice was cold, distant. Right now, we focus on survival. Everything else can wait. But I saw the truth in his eyes. The trust we'd barely built had shattered. And even if we survived the night, I wasn't sure we'd survive each other. The baby kicked hard, as if reminding me what was at stake. Everything. Drop a comment if you think they can still fix this. And make sure you're subscribed because the next part changes everything. We drove to Gianna's brownstone in silence. Richard was in the back seat, his head bandaged, drifting in and out of consciousness. Orlando sat rigid beside me, his jaw locked, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. Every time I tried to speak, The words died in my throat. Inside, Gianna got Richard settled on the couch, while Orlando paced like a caged animal. I stood by the window, my hand pressed to my belly, feeling our daughter move restlessly beneath my palm. "We need a new plan," Gianna said, breaking the silence. "If Alexei has 30 men at that warehouse, we're outnumbered and outgunned." "We get the real files," Orlando said flatly. "We use them as leverage to negotiate our way out." All eyes turned to me. "The safety deposit box," I said quietly. "It's at First National Bank, downtown branch, box 847. Orlando finally looked at me, his expression unreadable. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't know my father was alive. I didn't know the files were that important. I was focused on our baby, our wedding, building a life that didn't involve guns and lies, and..." My voice cracked. "I was trying to pretend we could be normal. We were never going to be normal." He crossed the room but stopped just out of reach. "My name is Caputo. Your father destroyed my family. There's 30 years of blood between us. Then why did you ask me to marry you?" "Because I'm a fool." His voice dropped to something raw, broken. "Because somewhere between the revenge and the manipulation, I forgot what I was supposed to be doing. I forgot you were Vincent Brennan's daughter and only saw Arya, the woman who made me want to be someone better." "Orlando, but you kept secrets, just like he did. And now I don't know what's real." "This is real." I grabbed his hand and pressed it to my belly, right where our daughter was kicking. "She's real. What we feel for each other is real. Everything else, the files, the families, the revenge, that's just noise." He stared down at his hand, feeling our baby move beneath his palm. Something shifted in his eyes, the ice melting just slightly. "I can't lose you," he whispered. "Either of you." "Then stop pushing me away." I stepped closer, my forehead against his chest. "Stop acting like my father's sins are mine to carry. I chose you. I'm still choosing you, even after everything." His arms came around me, holding me tight. "I don't deserve you. Probably not." A broken laugh escaped me. "But you're stuck with me anyway." Gianna cleared her throat. "As touching as this is, we still have a problem. Even if we get the files, Alexei's not going to just let us walk away. He wants blood, preferably Caputo blood." "Then we give him something better," Orlando said, pulling back but keeping one hand on my waist. "We give him Vincent Brennan." I froze. "What?" "Your father said he was protecting you by disappearing, but he didn't disappear. He's been operating from the shadows, pulling strings, maintaining control." Orlando's eyes were sharp now, focused. "If we can prove he's alive and give Alexei a way to find him, the Volkovs will forget all about us. You want to trade my father for our safety. I want to end this." His grip tightened. "Your father made his choices. He chose power over family. He chose control over his daughter. I'm choosing you, both of you, every single time." The baby kicked again, harder this time. I closed my eyes, thinking about the man who'd raised me, who'd taught me right from wrong, who'd held me when my mother died, who'd walked me through my first day of law school. And then I thought about the man on that pier, cold, calculating, willing to kill to maintain his empire. "Okay," I whispered. "Do it." 2 hours later, we stood outside First National Bank. It was 3 a.m, and the streets were empty. Orlando had made calls to people who could get us inside after hours, people who owed him favors that I didn't want to know about. The safety deposit box was small, nondescript. Inside were 3 flash drives and a handwritten note. "Arya, if you're reading this, I'm either dead or I had to disappear. These files are my life's work and my greatest sin. Use them wisely. Love always, Dad." I handed the drives to Orlando without reading further. He pocketed them and took my hand. "Last chance to change your mind," he said quietly. "I'm not changing my mind." We called Alexei Volkov from a burner phone. Orlando did the talking. "I have Vincent Brennan's files, all of them, and I'm willing to trade." "For what?" Alexei's accent was thick, his voice like gravel. "Peace. You leave my family alone. You leave Arya alone. The Caputo-Volkov territory dispute ends tonight." Silence. Then, "And what do I get besides files I can probably steal from you?" "Vincent Brennan's location. Current, accurate, verified." Orlando glanced at me, and I nodded. "He's alive. He's been operating in the shadows for months, and I can deliver him to you on a silver platter. More silence. I could hear Alexei breathing, thinking. 1 hour, he said finally. The warehouse. Just you, the girl, and the files. Anyone else shows up, everyone dies. The line went dead. Orlando pulled me close, his lips brushing my temple. We're going to survive this, and then we're going to get married, raise our daughter, and leave all of this behind. Promise? I promise. We drove to Roosevelt Island holding hands, ready to end the war that had started before either of us was born. Hit subscribe and let me keep you company with a new story every day. The warehouse was a skeleton of rusted steel and broken windows. Spotlights cut through the darkness as we pulled up, illuminating armed men positioned on every level. At the center of it all stood Alexei Volkov, a mountain of a man with a scar running from his temple to his jaw. Orlando squeezed my hand once before we stepped out of the car. Stay close to me, no matter what happens. Alexei's men patted us down, confiscating Orlando's weapons. I kept my hands protectively over my belly, feeling our daughter's nervous movements beneath my palms. Orlando Caputo, Alexei's voice boomed across the space. Last time I saw you, you were 12 years old at your father's trial. Look at you now, all grown up and making deals like a real boss. I'm not my father, Orlando said evenly. No, you're softer. He would never trade family secrets for a woman. Alexei's eyes slid to me. Even one carrying his child. The files, Orlando said, pulling out the flash drives. Everything Vincent Brennan collected over 30 years. Every family, every transaction, every dirty secret in New York. Alexei gestured, and one of his men brought over a laptop. They plugged in the first drive, and I watched their faces as they scrolled through document after document. Bank records, wire transfers, photographs of meetings that should never have been documented. This is real, the man confirmed quietly. Alexei's smile was predatory. And Brennan's location? First, you agree to the terms, Orlando said. Peace between our families. Arya and our child are untouchable. Forever. Done. Alexei waved dismissively. I have no interest in your domestic life, Caputo. I want the man who's been bleeding my organization dry for 15 years. Orlando pulled out his phone and showed Alexei a photograph. My father entering a building in Montreal. He's been living under the name James Crawford. Penthouse apartment, floor 12. He thinks he's safe. How did you get this? I whispered. Orlando had taken that photo less than an hour ago, but my father had been on the pier just hours before that. Your father's not as smart as he thinks, Orlando murmured. He's been using the same cell phone for months. We tracked it. Alexei studied the photo, then nodded to his men. Send a team. I want him alive. I have questions before he dies. Everything happened at once. The warehouse's back entrance exploded inward. Smoke grenades detonated across the floor. And through the chaos, I saw him, my father, surrounded by a dozen heavily armed men, advancing like an avenging angel. You really thought I wouldn't know you were tracking me, Vincent's voice cut through the confusion. I taught you. Better than that, sweetheart. Gunfire erupted. Orlando threw himself over me, dragging me behind a concrete pillar as bullets pinged off metal all around us. Alexei's men returned fire, and the warehouse became a war zone. We need to move, Orlando shouted over the noise. But my father was already there, grabbing my arm and yanking me away from Orlando. You're coming with me, now. Let her go, Orlando lunged. But one of my father's men slammed him back against the pillar. Dad, stop! I tried to pull free, but his grip was iron. This is insane. What's insane is you choosing him over your own blood, Vincent dragged me toward the exit. I've spent months planning this, letting Orlando think he was clever, letting the Volkovs think they had the upper hand. But those files? They're encrypted with a password only you know. Your mother's maiden name backwards, your birthday, and the year we lost her. My mind raced. Nozzle rep 328199. Don't say it out loud, he pulled me faster. Without you, those files are useless, which means everyone in this room needs you alive. You're the most valuable person in New York right now. Behind us, Orlando had broken free and was fighting his way toward us. Blood streamed from a cut above his eye, but his focus never wavered. "Arya," he roared. My father raised his gun, aiming at Orlando's chest. One more step, and I end this. Time seemed to stop. Orlando frozen mid-step, my father's finger on the trigger, and me, caught between the two men who'd defined my entire world. "If you kill him," I said quietly, "you lose me forever. I will never speak to you again. I will never give you that password. I will raise his daughter to know that her grandfather murdered her father in cold blood." My father's hand shook. "He's a Caputo. He'll destroy you." "He loves me." "That's more than you've given me in months." I stepped between them, my pregnant belly the only shield Orlando had. "You want the power those files give you? You want to control New York from the shadows? Then you let us go. Right now. And you disappear for real this time." "Arya, those are my terms, Dad. Take them or lose everything." For a long moment, Vincent just stared at me. Then slowly, he lowered his gun. "You're making a mistake," he said hoarsely. "Maybe, but it's my mistake to make." He looked at Orlando with pure hatred. "If you hurt her, if you hurt that baby, I will hunt you across the world and make you beg for death." "If I hurt them," Orlando said quietly, moving to my side, "I'll save you the trouble and do it myself." My father nodded once, then gestured to his men. They retreated toward the exit, covering their escape. At the doorway, Vincent turned back one last time. "I love you, Arya, even if you can't see it." Then he was gone. Alexei emerged from cover, his suit torn, his face furious. "Someone tell me what the hell just happened." Orlando pulled me close, his heart hammering against my back. "The deal stands. You have the files. The password is written inside the lining of the flash drive case. Vincent Brennan is gone, and you're not going to find him. But you got what you wanted, dirt on every operation in the city except your own." Alexei's eyes narrowed. "And if I decide that's not enough, then you start a war with every family in New York at once," Orlando said. "Because those files don't just incriminate them, they incriminate everyone who's ever worked with them, including corrupt cops, judges, and politicians. You release that information, and the entire criminal infrastructure collapses, which means no one makes money, including you." The silence stretched. Then Alexei laughed, a deep booming sound. "You have your father's cunning after all, Caputo. Fine. Take your woman and your baby and get out of my sight. But this piece, it's conditional. You stay out of my territory, I stay out of yours." "Agreed," Orlando said. We walked out of that warehouse hand in hand, past armed men and the wreckage of a war that had raged for 30 years. Behind us, Alexei's voice echoed one last time. "And Caputo? Congratulations on the wedding. Don't forget to invite me." Orlando pulled me close as we reached the car, his lips finding mine in a kiss that tasted like blood and smoke and hope. "Let's go home," he whispered. "Where's home?" I asked. "Wherever you are." 3 months later, I stood in front of a mirror in a private villa in Tuscany, adjusting my wedding dress for the 3rd time. "Stop fidgeting," Gianna said, stepping behind me to fix my veil. "You look perfect." She'd become more than Orlando's sister over the past months. She'd become my sister too. After that night at the warehouse, she'd helped us disappear from New York, setting us up in Italy where the Caputo name still carried weight, but where we could start fresh. My belly was enormous now, 9 months pregnant and due any day. The dress had been custom made to accommodate both me and the baby. Flowing white silk that made me feel like I was floating. "He's going to cry when he sees you," Gianna said, smiling. "Don't tell him I told you, but he's been a wreck all morning." "Is everyone here?" "Everyone who matters." She squeezed my shoulders. "Richard flew in yesterday. He's completely healed, by the way, and he brought the paperwork to officially transfer your father's assets to you. A few of Orlando's cousins from Sicily. Some locals from the village who've adopted you as one of their own." "And my father?" I asked quietly. Gianna's expression softened. "No word. But you knew he wouldn't come." I nodded. I'd sent him an invitation anyway, to an encrypted email address he'd given me before disappearing. He'd never responded. Part of me was relieved. Part of me still ached for the father I'd lost long before he'd faked his death. "It's time," Gianna said. The ceremony was in the villa's garden. overlooking rolling hills covered in olive groves and vineyards. 50 people stood as I walked down the aisle, a far cry from the 300-person society wedding we'd originally planned in New York. But when I saw Orlando waiting at the altar, nothing else mattered. He wore a charcoal suit, his dark hair swept back, his eyes locked on mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. And yes, Gianna was right. Tears were streaming down his face. "You're stunning," he whispered as I reached him, taking my hands. "You're crying," I whispered back. "Can't help it. I'm marrying the most beautiful woman in the world, and we're about to have a daughter together." His voice cracked. "I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and find out this was all a dream. It's real," I promised. "We're real." The ceremony was simple, spoken in both English and Italian. When the priest asked if anyone objected, I half expected my father to appear from the shadows one last time. But there was only silence and the sound of birds singing in the trees. "I do," Orlando said, his voice strong and sure. "I do," I echoed. And when we kissed, the baby kicked so hard between us that we both laughed against each other's lips. The reception was in the villa's courtyard, with music and dancing and food that seemed endless. Richard gave a toast about second chances and finding family in unexpected places. Gianna gave a toast threatening to hunt Orlando down if he ever made me cry. And when it was my turn, I raised my glass of sparkling water and looked around at the faces of people who'd fought for us, protected us, and loved us. "A year ago, I thought I knew what my life would look like," I said. "I thought I knew who I was and where I belonged. And then everything fell apart. And in the wreckage, I found something better. I found people who chose me, not because of my name or my father's legacy, but because of who I am." I looked at Orlando. "I found love that's honest and real and worth fighting for. So thank you, all of you, for being here, for being family." That night, as we slow danced under string lights, Orlando's hand resting on my belly, I felt completely at peace. "Have you thought about names?" he asked. "I was thinking, Sophia, after your mother." He pulled back, surprise and emotion flooding his face. "You'd do that? She gave me you. It's the least I can do." He kissed me then, deep and slow and full of promise. 2 days later, at 4 a.m, my water broke. The birth was long and difficult. 13 hours of labor that left me exhausted and terrified. But when they finally placed Sophia in my arms, tiny and perfect with Orlando's dark eyes and my nose, everything else disappeared. "She's perfect," Orlando whispered. His finger traced along her tiny hand. "You're both perfect." I looked up at him, this man who'd started as my enemy and become my everything, and I saw our future stretching out before us. Not easy, not simple, but ours. 3 weeks after Sophia was born, a package arrived at the villa. Inside was a silver rattle engraved with her name and a note in handwriting I recognized immediately. "Congratulations on your daughter. I hope she inherits your strength and his courage. I'm sorry I can't be there to watch her grow, but know that I'm proud of you, of the woman you've become and the family you've chosen. Love always, Dad." I held the rattle and cried, for everything we'd lost and everything we'd found. Orlando found me on the terrace, Sophia asleep against my chest, tears on my cheeks. He sat beside me and wrapped his arm around both of us. "He loved you," Orlando said quietly, "in his own broken way, and maybe someday, when Sophia's old enough to understand, we can tell her about the complicated man who was her grandfather." "Maybe," I agreed. We sat there as the sun set over the Tuscan hills, our daughter between us, our future uncertain but bright. The war was over, the secrets were buried, and we were finally, truly free. "I love you," Orlando said. "I love you too," I whispered back. And as Sophia stirred in my arms, opening her eyes to look at her parents for the first time that evening, I knew we'd given her something neither of us had growing up. A family built on love instead of legacy, on choice instead of obligation, on truth instead of lies. It was everything. Thanks so much for being here for this entire journey. Drop a comment telling me what you thought of Arya and Orlando's story, and make sure you're subscribed because we have so many more incredible stories coming your way. Where are you watching from? Let me know below. Until next time, beautiful souls.